World War II had two primary theaters. In Europe, the fighting was all about massive land battles and urban warfare, from the beaches of Normandy to the heart of Berlin. Meanwhile, the Pacific Front was a world of fierce naval battles, island-hopping campaigns, and brutal jungle fights. Let's hear the memories of soldiers from both fronts. European Front. Dwight D. Eisenhower commanded on the European Theater of Operations, U.S. Army.
The enemy is making his supreme effort to break out of the desperate plight into which you have forced him by your brilliant victories of the summer and fall. He is fighting savagely to take back all that you have won, and is using every treacherous trick to deceive and kill you. He is gambling everything, but already in this battle, your gallantry has done much to foil his plans. In the face of your proven bravery and fortitude, he will completely fail. But we cannot be content with his mere repulse. By rushing out from his fixed defenses, the enemy may give us the chance to turn his great gamble into his worst defeat. So I call upon every man of all the Allies to rise now to new heights of courage, of resolution, and of effort. Let everyone hold before him a single thought: to destroy the enemy on the ground, in the air, everywhere. Destroy him, united in this determination and with unshakable faith in the cause for which we fight. We will, with God's help, go forward to our greatest victory. More than the constant threat of imminent death, our men had overcome all that the unbridled elements could inflict on them in the way of snow and ice and sleet, clammy fog and freezing rain. All the pain of arduous marches and sleepless watches. They had given up their wives and children, or set aside their hope of wives and children, overcome luxuries or poverty, fought down their own inclinations to rest their tired bodies, to play it safe, to search out a hiding place. I believe we can always rely, even as I had to in the Battle of the Bulge, and the concurrent winter fighting from the North Sea to the Italian Alps, on the willingness and readiness of Americans, including young ones, to endure greatly in their country's cause.
John Lemons was an American pilot.
I was in the Army Air Force, 445th Bomb Group, 702nd Squadron, flying out of Tibenham, England during World War II. Tibenham is about 100 miles north of London along the North Sea, on the east coast of England. We were flying B-24 Liberators. There were 14 bomb groups in that area, and we were all going into Germany almost all the time after D-Day. On my 8th mission, I was shot down over Kassel, Germany, on September the 27th, 1944. That particular mission was the worst mission that had ever happened to any bomb group during World War II. We lost 31 out of 35 planes. We were shot down by 150 German fighter planes, unescorted, with no help from anybody except for what we had on the plane. We were firing 50 caliber machine guns. I was a survivor. 4 of my crew were killed. 2 of them were shot up badly, and I was lucky enough to get out along with the pilot and co-pilot. I was the waist gunner. I bailed out, pulled the ripcord at 23,500 feet, which was a mistake, but I guess I wanted to make sure it opened. I landed right in the middle of a battle, and of course I passed out after being out of oxygen for a short time, and came to it about 10,000 feet or a little before. I was captured by a couple of farmers first. A couple of soldiers finally captured me, and I spent the rest of my time in Germany as a prisoner of war in 3 or 4 different camps. They moved us from camp to camp. The Russians were going to overrun one camp, and then the British and Americans were going to overrun another one. Finally, the Americans did liberate the last camp I was in, which was Moosburg, very close to Munich. I was in captivity from September 27th, 1944 to April the 29th, 1945, when General George S. Patton liberated Moosburg. That was a wild day, of course. Some of the prisoners who were in the same camp that I was in probably had been there since the days in North Africa. The only things you can think about when you're a prisoner is food and when the war will be over. Of course, we were all optimistic. When you're newly shot down, you always think that things will be over quicker than they were. But the guys who were in Africa probably thought the same thing. I was fortunate and very lucky because I more or less came home. But a lot of men were killed that day. 21 men from my bomb group.
Ed Malouf was an American infantryman.
I was a 19-year-old combat infantryman with the 78th Division in World War II. We crossed the Rhine at Remagen, then fought our way north into the town of Königswinter. We came across a huge, beautiful estate with a stately mansion. While checking it out, we came across a huge pantry which was adjacent to its huge kitchen. Everyone thought, wow, this place must be owned by some high-ranking Nazi. We need to teach him a good lesson. Pandemonium prevailed as the punishing pantry patriots partook of the plentiful presence of preferred pears, peas, preserves, and pig. Meaning, of course, that there were 3 cured hams hanging from a rack in that pantry. 2 of them immediately disappeared. Some panic-stricken civilian was screaming something in German, which none of us understood. However, the lesson was cut short when an officer appeared in the kitchen and began speaking. "Gentlemen," he said, not knowing that we indeed were not being gentle. He continued, "You will return that which you have purloined from whence you gathered your loot, and that includes a couple of hams." As the group formed a line in response to the officer's order of returning their ill-gotten gain, a guy asked, "Why? Why do we have to return this stuff?" To which the officer replied, "Why indeed? It is because you have invaded the Swiss legation." The looks on the faces of those individuals reminded me of the tale about a herd of Texas steers who had that same look on their faces when they discovered that they had strolled across the border and into Oklahoma. This is a true story.
Letter from an unknown German soldier to his family.
My dear wife, the attack by the countless hordes of the past weeks is over. The silence of death rests over the battlefield, over the smoking, destroyed Soviet tanks, over the masses of troops the Bolshevists drove to death. The loneliness of the steppes returns. Their attack was in vain, their sacrifice forgotten, broken against our death-spewing weapons, against our strength, against our will, against our faith, which is stronger than any challenge. For in our hearts is Germany, the Germany that must live. Germany, that is you and the children. You are the homeland for us, and we carry you in our hearts. We fight and sacrifice and bleed for you. We never weaken for a second, for you must be protected. Back in our trenches, we think of home. I hold your last dear letter in my worn hands. Thank you for the words and news, for which I am deeply thankful. The war is now falling on my dear homeland. You write to me of the terror attacks by the British and Americans, and of heavy sacrifices, privations and worries that you also now face. I am filled with enormous rage, as are all of us here. There must be revenge, thousandfold revenge. But in my heart there is deep and holy thanks for those who through their sacrifice rescued you. For what they lost, you still have. Has that occurred to you? My dear wife, now you suddenly face problems that you have never before had. They are similar to the problems we soldiers face every day and every hour. To give up what is most dear to hold on to life. Will you fail this hour of trial? Were that to happen, you would not be my wife, because I know that you will remain brave. Our children are still happy and healthy. To ensure their life in the great German future, you must allow them to leave the city for the safety of the countryside, there from whence our ancestors came, and from which will come the strength to build our new Reich. I know how unspeakably hard it will be for you to give up everything that you loved and valued, but it is not so much as to outweigh victory. And when victory has come, you will praise the Führer's wisdom, who protected our children and gave them back to us. And do you know how happy I will be to know that you are safe? We can lose everything we have, everything except our honor, our homeland, and the lives of our children. That we must defend and win victory. Now it is time to prove that we are Germans, that we believe in the Führer and are loyal to him. You must think the same way all of us do. Now more than ever we must stand together help each other, obey every order. Your heart must tell you, I believe in victory, I believe in the Führer. That is our most holy confession. We carry it through the hell of these unimaginably difficult days of August, and it will shine in us when we rebuild our ruined cities, and our children are happy around you.
Pacific Front. Douglas MacArthur commanded the Southwest Pacific Theater.
The entire Philippine Islands are now liberated, and the Philippine campaign can be regarded as virtually closed. Some minor isolated action of a guerrilla nature in the practically uninhabited mountain ranges may occasionally persist, but this great landmass of 115,600 square miles with a population of 17 million is now freed of the invader. The enemy during the operations employed 23 divisions, all of which were practically annihilated. Our forces comprised 17 divisions. This was one of the rare instances when in a long campaign, a ground force superior in numbers was entirely destroyed by a numerically inferior opponent. Naval and air forces shared equally with the ground troops in accomplishing the success of the campaign. Naval battles reduced the Japanese Navy to practical impotence, and the air losses, running into many thousands, have seriously crippled his air potential. Working in complete unison, the three services inflicted the greatest disaster ever sustained by Japanese arms. The objects of the campaign were as follows. 1. To penetrate and pierce the enemy's center so as to divide him into north and south, his homeland to the north, his captured Pacific possessions to the south. Each half could then be enveloped and attacked in turn. 2. The acquisition of a great land, sea, and air base for future operations both to the north and to the south comparable to the British Islands in its use as a base for Allied operations from the west against Germany. 3. The establishment of a great strangulating air and sea blockade between Japan and the conquered possessions in the Pacific to the south, so as to prevent raw materials from being sent to the north and supply or reinforcement to the south. 4. The liberation of the Philippines with the consequent collapse of the enemy's imperial concept of a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere and the reintroduction of democracy in the Far East. 5. The liberation of our captured officers and men and of internees held in the Philippines. 6. A crippling blow to the Japanese Army, Navy, and Air Force. All of these purposes were accomplished.
Bill Adair was an American officer on Philippines.
I was a captain in the infantry at Fort Benning. They sent 21 officers from Benning itself to train Filipinos to fight the war. They knew the war was coming, so we had to build up the Philippine Army. So we were sent to build it. I was in the Bataan Death March. I couldn't march as much as lots of them did. I was marching along, and 6 people in one of our ambulances stopped. 6 people and the driver and a man in the front seat. It was full. It stopped right alongside me. It had running boards. I wanted to jump on that running board, and I did it. The Japanese didn't bother me. They should have killed me. In other words, they'd kill people for doing that. Anyhow, they didn't. We started driving along, and the Japanese stopped the ambulance, took the driver. It was our ambulance, our men in it, so they wanted to take the driver to drive one of their trucks. So that left us without a driver. I was a captain in the infantry, but nobody knew that I'd taken my infantry insignia off. I'm not an idiot, not completely. I'd taken that off, and I had just my bars on. From then on, I was a doctor and didn't realize it. I didn't tell anybody I was a doctor, didn't even think about it until the end of the death march, and my God, that's how I did it. They thought I was a doctor on that damn ambulance.
Bill Val was an American Marine. I served in the Pacific Theater. I was on the APA 165, the USS Effingham. I was a seaman. I was 17 and 18 years old. It all kind of seems surreal because at 17 and 18, you're not thinking about why are we here or what happened. You're just there doing what you're told to do. So I was a seaman on shipboard. I was in the boat crew. There were 30 LCDP boats, small boats with ramp-down boats in which we took troops ashore and then took their supplies in. So we hit on Okinawa. It was my only invasion. We landed there on Sunday, April Fool's Day, 1945. And that was my extent of the war. I really never was in danger of my life except in Okinawa, What was happening on Okinawa was on the land, and we were at the sea, and our only problem was the kamikazes. They came in solo. The last gasp of Japan was their suicide bombers. My little ship brought down one of those, which we were proud of. It was headed for the USS Texas, the battleship Texas, which, of course, those ships, they were the support for the land, and they wanted to knock those out. This kamikaze was about to hit a hospital ship when we brought it down, but I really was not a war hero. I was just an 18-year-old warrior at that time. Diary of a Japanese Soldier.
We know we are going to die, so we have no fear of anybody, and everyone is high-spirited. Even though we are alive, we figure we will only live about 2-3 days. All of us put the muzzle of the gun to our throats several times, but however, eventually we will die, so why not just stick it out to the finish? The whereabouts of each platoon leader is unknown. We are surrounded by tanks, but we'll stick it out to the finish. We did not care about the fire from the machine guns and the guns on the tanks. The tanks could not come close because of the swamp, and men from the labor battalion hastily commit suicide. We are still alive today. We know that we are to die, so therefore we are the second suicide unit and plan to fight to the beautiful finish. We are determined and plan to battle against the tanks if we did not see our forces come in by December 8th anniversary. It seems that the Americans are giving a lot of false propaganda. American forces have landed in the Marshalls and will soon invade Japan. The natives told them that there were several 10,000 landed at Tarawa, and also they told them that if Japanese soldiers come to the village to tell them to give up. Don't make me laugh. We can die any time. Hurriedly I came back, but it was too late. A Toby was left behind and shot off 5 rounds and reloaded another clip and tried to commit suicide. And I said, wait, there is more ammunition left. We opened a can of food and ate it, and with the rifle and ammunition we went out to the beach. At that time, Engineer Nakada was not quite dead and was suffering, so we finished him off with 1 round. This is also showing our love for a comrade, that he will not be taken prisoner. This morning the weather is good and 10 of us finished breakfast in high spirits. 2 enemy tanks approached the island. Everyone was separated. We do not have any weapons. I and 2 others from the 14th Air Unit were hiding in the entrance of an air raid shelter, and they passed us 3 times about 3 meters distance from us. The tank stayed on the island from 6 a.m. until sundown. We attempted to go to another island. We swam for about 2 hours, and due to the large waves, and we were completely exhausted and thinking it was impossible, we turned back. Finally, the end has come, and it is impossible to commit suicide. Enemy tanks with infantry came up about 50 meters away. Don't know why, but the 4 got up and ran into the sea. The tanks opened up with their guns. Maybe the 4 were either killed or were out of range. God has saved me again. I am all alone, and it is pretty lonely.